Driving. The personalities of human beings are sometimes exposed by the type of vehicle that we drive. But how we drive in our vehicles will be the fascinating topic discussed in this chapter. Have you ever seen the bumper sticker on the back of a vehicle that reads, "How's my driving?" Sometimes I want to say in a furious state, "It sucks. Get off the road." There are some bad drivers out there, aren't there? Some people drive incredibly aggressively, but in real life, when they are not behind the wheel, they have a personality as gentle as a lamb. Their true personality is completely different from their driving personality. Other people that are complete jerks, with a self-centered, it's all about me attitude in life, often drive that way too. If you have been on the roads lately, you are going to love this chapter. We are going to start this one off with a personal story. Personal story. Back in the days of my early 30s, when I was always flying around with 10 places to be at once, I was stopped for speeding by an Indiana State Trooper. This recurring inconvenient interruption in my busy day usually occurred every month or so. Actually, my run-in with the law happened so frequently, I used to return home with my latest traffic violation and hang it proudly on the refrigerator like a kid's painting or drawing. My wife would notice the ticket eventually and blurt out, "Oh my God, you got another one?" with me snickering in the background. The highway patrol officer on this particular day strolled over to my driver's side window after running my license information in his car and said to me, "Sir, do you know that you have 12 points on your license?" I sarcastically joked back, "Really? That's cool. Almost there. I was trying to hit 15 or 20. The stern officer was not amused and gladly handed me my new ticket with a nice fine of $115 and a requirement to attend a defensive driving course. This would now be the second defensive driving course I had been summoned to, the other one occurring in Arizona when I was in my early 20s. Does this story remind you of anybody you know in your life? This was how I behaved back then, but today, after driving over 1 million miles, I proudly claim I'm a good driver. I have many accident-free miles under my belt now, and I hope to share some things with you to help keep us all safer on the roads. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Someone you know just got into a car accident. They tell you what happened and express, "It wasn't my fault, though. The other driver was cited." They then proceed to tell you about their last few days from hell because of their accident. Do we all recognize this conversation? An emphasis bar says a no-fault accident is still an accident. Most of us experienced a fender bender in our driving history. How would you like to eliminate this hassle from your life? Or at least reduce the chances of an accident occurring and having to waste time on these matters? Think about it. The person I alluded to above may have not been cited, but they did have to miss an afternoon of work, schedule a rent-a-car, deal with the police, conduct several conversations with insurance claims people, and pay some kind of a deductible, maybe $500 or $1,000, right? If the person we are discussing ended up totaling their vehicle, they then had to spend time searching online for a new vehicle, and then spend time shopping for a new vehicle at car dealerships, dealing with all the salespeople. All this hassle for a no-fault accident. This familiar routine is a complete time waster in our lives. Do you agree? I would like to share with you what I do on the roads these days and discuss some common driving situations that we can all relate to in order to present some form of teaching and wisdom. Disclaimer. For my dear fans and readers in other countries that drive on the opposite side of the road from the USA, please view the adorable driving pictures in your closest nearby mirror. When I pull up to stop traffic, I usually stop with at least one car length between my car and the next. In busy, congested traffic, I find it difficult sometimes to leave 2 car lengths like I would prefer, but most of us like to pull up, leaving a few inches between our car and the back bumper of the driver in front of us, like car number 2 in the picture, right? When I am coming to a complete stop, I keep my eyes glued on my rear view mirror. I'm looking for the driver caught off guard by the stopped traffic, especially when conditions are bad like inclement weather. If we ever encounter this distracted driver, and we do what I am suggesting to do, by leaving at least one car length between our car and the next in front, we might be able to avoid an accident. With this extra footage, we can pull forward a little, giving some extra time and space for the distracted driver to screech to a halt, thus reducing the chances of a rear-end collision. What is the red outlined shape like a baseball home plate, you ask? This striped area cannot be found in all situations, but it is our proactive escape route. We must always ask ourselves, where would I go if the driver behind me was coming way too fast and was about to slam into the back of me? Have your plan of action. Have your escape route picked out before any incident occurs. Sometimes we may have to jump up on a curb, which cannot be too friendly on our vehicle's rims and wheels, but this strategy can avoid a dangerous rear-end collision. How about this one? Do we recognize this story? A friend or family member tells us about their latest accident and explains, "This guy just blew through a four-way stop sign and T-boned me right in the middle of the intersection as I was turning left." In this case, I admit the blame falls on the reckless driver's shoulders for not following correct stop sign protocol, but I feel that both drivers are at fault here. Let me explain why. Well, this is how the situation usually plays out. The T-bone victim saw the other car approaching the four-way stop sign at a high rate of speed and turned left anyway. Our T-bone victim had the thought that they had waited long enough, and in their mind decided it was their turn to go. As they were turning, the speedy driver carelessly cruised through the stop sign and slammed right into the passenger door of our victim. Can you picture this scenario? Do you have any personal experience on this? This accident could and should have been avoided. How, do you ask? Why don't we wait until we know what the other drivers are doing before we decide to turn left? We witnessed the other car approaching the stop sign at a high rate of speed. Why put ourselves out there in the middle of the intersection? How much time would it have taken to see what the at-fault driver was going to do before we proceeded? 5 seconds? 10 seconds at the most? But no, we are too obsessed over the notion that it was our turn to go, rather than adjusting for road conditions. We lost the battle with our patience and ego. In these scenarios, people can be injured, cars can be totaled. It is just not worth it. Take the extra few seconds to read the road before we put ourselves in a vulnerable position. How about this one? Have we ever had this happen to us? I have a picture here of another intersection. A car in front of us is turning right onto a busy two-way traffic street that has a right turning lane. The driver in front of us turns right, and we get ready to turn right ourselves. We look to the left with caution, start moving our vehicle forward in order to turn right, and then, yikes, holy crap, we see that the driver turning in front of us has decided to cram on their brakes and stop. The driver in front of us hesitated for some reason. They were moving, and then they stopped. Maybe because they thought some other vehicle was coming into their lane. All we see is red brake lights about 2 feet from our front bumper. In this situation, there is either going to be a close call or a rear end collision. If there is a collision, we will be the one cited because we are the car behind. Have any of you experienced a situation like this? This is also an unnecessary accident, and from now on, all of us need to think in a different way. When we see a vehicle in front of us turning right, just assume that they are going to stop immediately after they start turning right. We don't move an inch until we know for sure what the other driver's intentions are going to be. Just sit behind them and wait for a few more seconds and observe their actions. If we all just do this and think this way, there can be no rear-end collision in a right turn situation. If you forget what I shared with all of you here and ignore the advice, try this excuse to the police officer that comes to the scene of the accident. Plead, "It wasn't my fault, officer. The driver in front went forward and then just stopped out of the blue." The officer will listen to your explanation, smile, and reply, "Here's your $130 citation," and give you an option for a court date to attest the citation. The officer will end the conversation with, "Have a nice day." Court is another time waster. And by the way, you are not getting out of the ticket. The accident was your fault. Here are a few more unsubstantiated gems to keep us all safer on the roads. Keep in mind, common sense is uncommon. And sometimes we know, but we just don't do. If you know these things already and don't do them all the time, you don't really know it. I have an emphasis bar here. It says, drive away from chaos and out of danger. How many times do we pull up to an area like a parking lot, car park, or school zone, or when a busy factory shift lets out, and there are people and cars everywhere creating a chaotic scene? If we pull up to a spot where we see many vehicles and people everywhere, we should park our car somewhere else. Act like you do when we have a brand new dent-free car in that first week, fresh from the dealership. This thought pattern decreases the chance of anyone else hitting us or backing into our vehicle, thus avoiding having to call the police and wasting everyone's time. Simple philosophy here. Always drive away from chaos, and incidents will be avoided. Avoid chaos. I have another emphasis bar. It says, always reverse slowly. Have you ever reversed out of a parking spot and another car whizzing through the apartment complex or the mall parking lot clipped your bumper or slammed right into your rear side? Or have you ever reversed right into a fire hydrant or stationary object like a light pole and put a big dent in your own rear bumper? If you reverse slowly in all conditions, all this hassle can be avoided. If we hit the pole, it will only be a little scratch or tiny dent because we will brake once we feel the resistance on the bumper. And if we reverse slowly from a parking space, the other driver won't be surprised and hit us as we are backing out. They may have a little extra time to swerve and miss our back bumper. In addition, if we were reversing slowly, our back end wouldn't have been out far enough for them to hit us. One cure to all these common accidents: reverse slowly. This is simple stuff, folks. I have another emphasis bar. It says, assume every other driver on the road is not going to do what they are supposed to do. Assume the driver in front of us is going to turn without using their signal indicator light. Assume the driver is going to pull out into busy traffic when it's not safe to do so. Assume the other drivers are going to try and beat the red light when we have a green light to go. Assume the driver in front of us is going to slam on their brakes at any second, and to counter their erratic behavior, always maintain a safe distance. We must have the mindset that we are the only ones on the road that are driving defensively and know what we are doing. Expect the unexpected. Think this way and accidents can be avoided. I have an emphasis bar. It says, do not respond to social pressure being put on us by other drivers. Have we ever had another driver on the road courteously wave us on, indicating that the road is safe, and when we take their advice, we almost hit a truck or have a close call? Have you ever been stopped waiting to turn left into heavy traffic, trying to decide when it's safe to pull out, and you can just feel the driver behind you getting impatient? They blow their horn angrily from the safe environment of their vehicle, acting like they are late for a wedding or something. Sometimes we look in our rearview mirror and they are waving their arms around, red-faced, motioning, "Come on, what are you waiting for?" Ignore them. Ignore everyone. Do what is right for you. If we get into a collision, do you think these nice people, sarcasm, will lend you a hand or offer to pay half of our insurance deductible? I think not. Often we change our driving habits and safety precaution values because we are worried what another person that we will never meet thinks of us. If we want to avoid a confrontation, simply turn right instead of left. Drive down the street a few blocks and look for a safe place to turn around and drive back in the direction that you need to go. Or take a new route. Be patient and avoid silly, dangerous, unstable people. Interaction with them only creates havoc and stress. They bring no value to your life. Move away and get away from them, or you will get sucked in to their crazy world. Disclaimer: I could go on forever on this subject of safe driving. And if there is a sequel to this book, I promise there will be a Driving 2 chapter. For now, let's work on these common sense scenarios. Unsubstantiated advice from a middle-aged man about driving. Driving erratically and impatiently will only end up wasting more of the time that we are trying to save in the first place. Always expect the other drivers on the road to not do what they are supposed to do, and we will minimize the chances of accidents. Am I right about all this, or am I just half right? This concludes the driving chapter in Unsubstantiated Advice About Life from a Middle-Aged Man. Everybody be safe out there. Please join us for the next video on YouTube, Feelings. Thanks for listening, everybody.